Welcome to another Southbank Investment Bulletin and Happy New Year. And I guess it's the beginning of the year, so I think many people will start thinking about how to lose a few pounds. And back in 2017, Weight Watchers went on an epic advance. That was immediately following Oprah Winfrey taking a big position in the company and saying that she was absolutely committed to using the disciplines that Weight Watchers instills in people and the various regimens of food that they supply in order to help her control her weight. And that lasted for about 2 years. The price went from around $15 to over $100 and then came all the way back down again. And usually at the beginning of the year, you can anticipate that there will be a little bit of enthusiasm around losing weight. But this is not a normal year, where we've certainly had a couple of different surprises. The first is that in December of this year, Oprah Winfrey came out and said that she is now using medication to control her weight. And the kind of medication that she's using is the same kind that was previously being used for uh, managing diabetes. So Novo Nordisk is the share that is now being looked at as the Weight Watchers equivalent in 2024. And I had dinner with a friend of ours on New Year's Day. She's a doctor at UT Southwestern. She was basically saying that they can't hire endocrinologists fast enough, and that uh, people who want to have a weight loss uh, booking or an appointment, they have to wait 6 months now because there's simply so much demand relative to the number of doctors available. And this is all down to the injections that you can get from Novo Nordisk that help to curtail appetite. And one of the most important points about it is that it attacks the hormones. So it's basically latched onto the idea that whereas most people think that obesity is primarily about self-control, the fact that we have a hormone-based uh, solution means that it's perhaps more about physical makeup. Now, of course, there is always going to be an argument around this, and certainly self-control is a big part of it. But I think one thing we can see here is that there's been an incredibly consistent trend. One of the really impressive things about Novo Nordisk is simple, that they don't provide cures. They treat symptoms. And this is obviously a very good money spinning alternative. And you don't make a lot of money from producing cures. And the weight control industry is growing rapidly, and it has been one of the primary sources of support for the pharmaceutical sector. So Eli Lilly has also come out with their own weight watching type of solution, and it has a very similar trajectory. And then we have Merck, and that is also doing well. Now, they have just announced that they're going to get into the game. But the one thing we can say about all of these shares is that they've gone up a lot already. And the big question then, of course, is has a lot of the good news already been priced in? And since they did so well in 2023, then are they going to do equally as well in 2024? And that is a big outstanding question. But what I think it helps to highlight is that even in an environment where we have a lot of uncertainty, and we can certainly think about the pharmaceutical sector and the healthcare sector, and the dissatisfaction that many people in the UK have with the NHS, and the great deal of uncertainty that is surrounding the ability of the NHS to both fund itself and to provide a level of care that people expect. The reality is that uh, even though we have this uncertainty, there are still plenty of things to be particularly enthused about. Now, this is going to be part of the stock market makeup for a lot of 2024 because we have a lot of uncertainty. We know that monetary policy has tightened up a lot, and interest rates are higher than they've been in years. And we've seen a really big jump in inflationary pressure. And now that pressure is coming back down again, but the perception of risk is obviously much higher for your average investor than it would have been a couple of years ago. And what I think that we should anticipate in 2024 is idiosyncratic bull markets, that there will be individual portions of the market that will do well. And we can also then think about gold. And gold prices are rising in a whole host of currencies. So the price of gold in pounds is hovering here around the $1,600 level. And this is the upper side of a range that's been forming for a year. But there's a clear upward bias to trading overall. And there's obviously then the potential that gold is going to do better from here as we look out towards the middle of the year when interest rates do start to come back down, when inflation comes down to a point where deflation becomes more of a worry. And then the prospect of interest rates coming back down and quantitative easing starting up again. That's a very material potential outcome, and it would be clearly beneficial for gold. Now, that is equally true of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin prices are holding here below the 45,000 level. And I think the most important point to highlight isn't so much the move higher that has taken place since the beginning of October, which is very impressive and almost entirely down to the speculation around the SEC in the USA allowing spot priced ETFs to trade. I think the more important point is that every single time that Bitcoin has pulled back over the last year, those pullbacks haven't been much more than about 5,000 and really on one occasion about $6,000. So the price got up to 45,000, and even though we've had a lot of volatility, and there was just one day last week where the price pulled back by almost 5,000 in a day, but it didn't break downwards. So the most consistent thing you'll often see about trends is the size of the reactions. And the reason for that is because people like to buy the dip. But then, of course, the big question is, well, how much of a dip do you wait for? Well, the easy way to figure that out is to look at how much it pulled back in the past. And the last few times it pulled back by about 5,000, maybe 6, even 7,000, but not 10 or 20. So if you want to buy the dip, well, you might think that waiting for a pullback of about 5,000 would be a good time to initiate a position. And we've seen that that's when people have started to come back in. And that's happened now on several occasions over the last 6 weeks. What it also means is that a reaction of more than 7,000 is the minimum that's going to be required in order to really question the consistency of the advance. But we do have a lot of decisions coming up, and this entire advance in the first place was down to the question around the decision around the ETFs, and we might have an answer for that next week. So then that could be positive. If it's positive, we could see prices just go sideways because we've gone up a lot already, or they might go higher. But if it's negative, well, then we should anticipate that the price will pull back, and we could easily come back into the $30,000 level. Now, 30,000 is very important. And again, this is an idiosyncrasy of 2024 because there's going to be a halvening and the cost of mining is going to double. So the cost of production is going to jump to about 30,000, and that should then subsequently provide something of a floor for prices, just like 15,000 today is a floor for prices. So we're going to certainly have a lot of elections in 2024, a lot of things that people will worry about. but there will be idiosyncratic moves, and there will be plenty of opportunities to make money. But one will have to be nimble, and to simply bet on the market is probably not going to be as fruitful a strategy this year, rather than betting on individual companies. I think it is more of a trader's environment now than an investor's. And I think with that, I'll leave it for this week, and I'll wish all the best to all of you.